So question I'd have for you is kind of moving from that perspective. I want to go back to the being better at run, but I want to look at it more on how do I make the day-to-day operations of certain things better. So I talked about my presentation. We had 3 people that we know of that had serious mail issues. Mail is probably the singular most universal application in business today. It's the most effective means of, and well, I'd say effective, maybe ineffective at times, means of communication.
Yep.
How could I actually change that? You mentioned a couple of things, but can you give me an example what that would actually look like that someone could do to make that portion, that one thing better?
Yeah, it's interesting. You and I were discussing the other day, there was an article that was out there where there's a statement that messaging or mail has become a commodity and you should just take it to the clouds. Just outsource it. Don't be bothered with it. I would disagree with that in most cases. I believe that in every one of us, and when you all responded to Tim's polling or Tim's questions in talking about messaging, when you said, how significant or how impactful is an outage in mail, clearly mail is so foundational to our communications abilities within our organizations. To outsource it to somebody who doesn't have the same priorities or isn't watching it and managing it and monitoring it and maintaining it with the same level of priority as it is to your ability to execute and communicate as an organization, I think that's a big mistake.
Okay.
What I believe you need to do is you need to acknowledge and get a good understanding of what is the impact that mail has or messaging has on my organization. Yep. Is it simply to get messages around? Or we have customers that their business this is one of their top 3 business applications such that they can't write grants, multi-million-dollar grants, and submit the request for those grants if mail is down. If I have to meet a deadline to submit for $1 million grant or a multi-million-dollar grant and mail happens to be down right before that deadline, that's business impacting, right? And if I had outsourced to Google Mail or somebody else, what level of priority and who's watching that and going to make sure proactively that doesn't happen to my business.
All right, and we know that Google's been down with their mail at least once this year, right?
Exactly. How high priorities, and I don't remember how long they were down for. It was like 6 hours or something crazy like that. But there's, I believe what needs to happen first, know the impact of mail or how significant or a high priority is mail to the business. I would say that's for any application or any business process. Then you should look at the fact that mail is not a standalone item. Look at mail from end to end. Make sure you take into account what is the entire business process, who are the users, what do they use to actually interface with that application or that business process, how does that application traverse the entire business, the entire infrastructure, and make sure that I'm addressing every one of those elements. If I outsource mail to Google, but my core switch port goes down, and now I can't actually get to Google. Is mail down? Can I still not get those? Can I still not submit that grant request?
Right.
It's the same impact. So I really need to make sure that I marry all of the elements of the technology infrastructure that could potentially impact any given application or business process, marry them together, and monitor, manage, support them proactively in an appropriate fashion.
So the 3 cases I talked about, we had an extreme range of people that were doing things to try to get ahead of the game, to try to be more proactive. We had one that used a modern monitoring system. It was called DAU. It's when the dumbass user calls in with a complaint. That was their monitoring system. We had another one that had some basic tools, and it was mostly focused on the network, the routers, switches, firewalls, that kind of stuff. Then we had another one that was out there, and they had the networking stuff in place, and they were doing a little bit of server monitoring. But none of those systems detected that the mail was in jeopardy of going down.
And that's the other key piece. It's not just about understanding when something happens to be up or down. I believe there's a layered approach that you can kind of take. Is something available? Is it there? Can I reach it? Call it reachability.
Yeah.
Then there is it accessible? Can I actually connect to it? So I might be able to ping or conduct a reachability test, but can I actually log in to mail?
So authentication could be failing, right?
Next level down is how is the application performing? How is the server performing? How is the network performing? Proactively looking at the performance statistics in that application, on that server, on that networking device, and looking for certain key performance indicators that might be precursors to potential problems that are happening.
Like this queue size was a major issue in most of these issues, most of these examples.
Exactly. The next level down is to take the user experience into effect. So synthetic transactions or user simulation, user experience monitoring is what we like to call it, where we are actually mimicking a user accessing a particular application, in this case it would be mail, and looking at what is an acceptable service level for that response for that application can be a precursor or an indicator of potential problems that might happen. And then the last one is what I like to call is taking that all together and actually having a business-centric approach to monitoring, which is all of those things. Is it reachable, accessible, performing well, and how is the user experience actually at any given time?